Quinn Hartley tightened the last screw on the wobbling lemonade stand, while his 7-year-old son, Wyatt, stood proudly beside the crooked sign that read, "Fresh lemonade 50 cents." The cardboard was barely hanging from the wooden post, but Wyatt's grin could have lit up the entire block. "Dad, do you think we'll sell a lot today?" Wyatt asked, his little voice full of hope. Quinn glanced at the cloudless sky, already feeling the heat crawling under his threadbare t-shirt. "We'll sell enough, buddy. Let's just keep smiling and pour the best lemonade in town." They were set up on the corner of Maple and 3rd, just outside the park entrance. Quinn didn't like bringing Wyatt out here, but after losing his job at the garage 2 months ago, he was out of options. The lemonade stand wasn't much, but it made Wyatt feel like he was helping, and Quinn needed that smile more than he'd admit. Across the street, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. It didn't belong in this neighborhood. The doors practically sparkled, and the tires looked like they'd never touched a pothole in their life. Quinn barely glanced at it until a woman stepped out. She wore jeans, white sneakers, and a simple gray tank top. Her long, dark auburn hair was pulled into a high ponytail, and her sunglasses covered most of her face. She looked like someone trying not to be noticed, which only made her stand out even more. "Hi there," she said, walking up to the stand with a warm smile. "Lemonade, huh?" Wyatt stood up straighter. 50 cents, but if you want 2 cups, it's $1, Quinn chuckled under his breath, rubbing the back of his neck. "Ignore the salesman. 1 cup's 50 cents. We're not running a scam here." The woman laughed, pulling out a $20 bill. "Well, I'll take 1 cup and a conversation." Quinn hesitated. "That's way too much." She leaned over and handed the bill to Wyatt, who stared at it like it was a golden ticket. "I insist. Looks like you've got good lemonade and I could use the company." Quinn poured her a cup and handed it over. "Thanks, I didn't catch your name." Vanessa Ford." She took a sip, her eyes locking on his. "And you?" "Quinn Hartley. This is my son, Wyatt." Wyatt waved, gripping the bill like it was going to run off. Vanessa leaned on the edge of the stand. "So, is this your full-time gig, or just a Saturday hustle?" Quinn didn't answer right away. He wasn't ashamed, but he didn't love laying his life out for strangers either. Then again, there was something about her calm, real, not a trace of pity in her eyes. "I used to be a mechanic." "Garage shut down. I'm looking for something else, but until then, Wyatt and I are making it work." Vanessa nodded slowly. "That's honest and smart." They talked for 10 more minutes. Wyatt kept pouring cups for people walking by, proudly announcing, "We have change," even when they didn't ask. Quinn couldn't stop glancing at Vanessa. There was something about her like she was made of steel and warmth at the same time. Eventually, she checked her phone and stepped back. "I've got to run, but I'll be back tomorrow if you're here." Quinn raised an eyebrow. "You're coming back for the lemonade," she grinned. Maybe also for the guy making it." Vanessa walked back to her car and Wyatt tugged at his dad's hand. "Dad, was that a date?" Quinn chuckled. "No, buddy. That was a customer." But he couldn't shake the way her smile stuck in his head all afternoon. The next day she came back, and the day after that. By the 4th visit, she was sitting on the bench beside their stand, sipping lemonade and teasing Quinn about his crooked sign. She asked questions about Wyatt's school, about Quinn's old job, about his favorite movie, and she actually listened. "This lemonade is still terrible," she said one day, setting her cup down. Quinn laughed. "You keep coming back, though." "Maybe I like the company." He looked at her. "You really don't seem like someone who has time to hang out at lemonade stands." "I don't," she said honestly, "but I make time. For things that matter." That night, Quinn found himself lying awake, staring at the ceiling of their small apartment. He hadn't let himself feel anything for a long time. Not since Wyatt's mom walked out on them 4 years ago. He'd buried the part of him that wanted connection, romance, love because survival didn't have room for those things. But now, he felt it rising again. The next afternoon, Vanessa showed up in a white sundress, holding 2 large bags. "What's that?" Quinn asked, wiping sweat from his brow. She pulled out a brand new umbrella, a portable cooler, and a folding chair. "Upgrades. This sun is brutal and your cooler's a glorified bucket." He blinked. "You didn't have to, I wanted to," she said, setting everything up. Now sit in that chair like someone who deserves to rest, Wyatt clapped. We're fancy now, Quinn sat, watching Vanessa work beside his son like she belonged there. Why are you doing this? He asked quietly. She looked at him, all playfulness gone. Because I care. And just like that, everything shifted. That evening, as they packed up, Quinn walked her to her car. You're not just being nice, are you? He asked suddenly. You're not doing this out of charity or guilt. Vanessa turned to him, her voice soft but certain. Quinn, I don't do anything I don't want to do. I come here because I want to see you, because I think you're kind and strong and you love your son so much it shows in every word you say. And yeah. I think I'm falling for you. His breath caught. He hadn't expected her to say it, hadn't let himself hope she might feel the same, but she did, and it was real. He stepped closer. I don't have much to offer. You've already given me more than anyone has in a long time, she whispered. Then she leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't rushed or dramatic. It was slow, warm, and honest, like everything they'd been building since that first cup of lemonade, and as she pulled away, she smiled. I'll be here tomorrow too. Quinn just nodded, unable to say a word. Because for the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving, he was starting to feel alive again. The rain came without warning. It was barely past noon when thunder rolled low above the rooftops, and within minutes, thick drops began to hammer the pavement. Quinn grabbed the folded tarp from behind the cooler and started covering the stand, his shirt already soaked through. Wyatt ducked under the bench nearby, holding their tip jar like it was a treasure chest. Dad, everything's getting wet. I know, buddy. Just keep the jar dry. We'll pack it all up in a second. Vanessa didn't show up that day. Quinn wasn't surprised. No one in their right mind would come to a lemonade stand in a storm, but he couldn't stop checking the street between tying knots and tossing the last of their cups into a plastic bag. By the time he and Wyatt made it back to their building, both of them were dripping, breathless, and clutching the limp cardboard sign like it was a flag of surrender. Inside, Quinn laid towels across the floor and helped Wyatt into dry clothes. Their apartment smelled faintly of old wood and lemon sugar. The electricity flickered once but held. He glanced at the small clock on the microwave and exhaled slowly. It was the first day she hadn't come. He didn't realize how much he'd been waiting for her until she didn't appear. The next morning, the rain had passed, leaving puddles in the cracks of the sidewalks. The sky was a clean slate. Quinn debated whether to set up the stand again. The forecast was unpredictable and their supplies were running low. He had just enough lemons for 5 full pitchers. No more. As he stood at the counter slicing fruit, Wyatt came out of the bedroom holding a folded piece of paper. Vanessa left this in my backpack yesterday. I forgot. Quinn took it, wiping his hands on a dish rag before unfolding the note. It was written on heavy stationery, the kind people used for weddings or business invitations. The handwriting was elegant and slanted. There's something I'd like to show you. Come find me. I'll be at the cafe on Lexington and Pine at noon. There was no signature. Just a small coffee ring in the corner. Quinn checked the clock. It was already past 10. He packed up the cooler, handed Wyatt a peanut butter sandwich, and called his downstairs neighbor, Lily, who often watched Wyatt when Quinn went to job interviews. I'll only be gone an hour, he said. Maybe 2. Lily waved him off. Take your time, he knows where the cookies are. Quinn didn't own a car anymore. He jogged 6 blocks, then caught a bus that rattled like it was held together with duct tape. He got off 2 stops early, his nerves twisting tighter with every step. He'd never been to the cafe on Lexington and Pine. It wasn't the kind of place that advertised. No flashy signs, no sidewalk chalkboards. Just tall windows, copper-framed doors, and a host behind a marble stand who looked at Quinn's damp sneakers with a flicker of hesitance. I'm meeting someone, Quinn said. Vanessa Ford. The host straightened. Of course, right this way. They walked through the main room, past couples sipping espresso and a man in a velvet blazer reading a leather-bound novel. Quinn felt like he didn't belong, like he should have changed into something that wasn't frayed at the cuffs, but then he saw her. Vanessa sat by the window, her hair loosely pinned, a porcelain cup in front of her. She looked up, smiled, and waved him over like he belonged more than anyone else in the room. You came. He sat slowly, unsure if he should speak first. Wyatt forgot to give me your note. I figured, she said, pouring him a cup of coffee from the silver carafe on the table. I almost stopped by your place, but I didn't want to cross a line. He stared at the gleaming silverware, the thick napkins folded like origami. This place is something, it's quiet, she said, and I needed somewhere to think. About what? She looked at him then, really looked. I need to tell you something, and I want you to hear me all the way through before you say anything. He folded his arms but nodded. All right. My name isn't just Vanessa Ford, it's Vanessa Ford McAllister. My father owns McAllister Holdings, real estate, private equity, corporate infrastructure. I help run the foundation side of it now. Quinn didn't move. Okay. I didn't tell you because I didn't want that to be the reason we talked. I've spent a lot of time around people who only see numbers. You didn't. You saw me, and that. That meant more than I expected. He leaned back slightly, his voice low. So all this time you were hiding nothing that matters, she interrupted gently. I still meant every word I've said. I still care about you, about Wyatt. None of that changes, he exhaled slowly. You drive a car that probably costs more than my apartment. You've been buying supplies for us, helping with the stand. I thought I was figuring out how to get back on my feet, and now I feel like I've been standing on yours. I never did it to make you feel small, she said. I did it because I saw something good and real in you. I wanted to be part of it, not fix it. He looked at his coffee, untouched, growing cold. You should have told me sooner. I know, she whispered. But I didn't want money to be the first thing between us. That's the thing, he said, his voice tightening. It's always between us now. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. Let me show you something. They left the cafe together. He followed her down a side street lined with maple trees until they reached a building with black iron gates and ivy along the walls. She tapped a code into the keypad, and the gate swung open. What is this place? A property I bought last year, she said. It was going to be converted into office space, but then I saw it could be something else. They stepped into a courtyard where sunlight filtered through the trees. The building had wide windows and tall ceilings. Inside, the rooms were empty but clean, the floors polished, the paint fresh. I want to open a community center, Vanessa said. A space for families like yours, job training, after-school programs, small business grants. I just didn't have the right person to help run it. He stared at her, his voice barely audible. You're asking me, I'm asking you, she said. Because you know what it means to fight for something. Because you see people, not numbers. And because maybe, just maybe, I want to build something with you. Quinn turned away for a moment, pacing to the far corner of the room. He pressed a hand to his face, overwhelmed. When he turned back, his eyes were wet. You're serious. As a storm in July, she said. He walked toward her slowly, the air thick between them. I don't know if I'm ready for all of this. Her voice softened. Then let it come in pieces. You don't have to say yes today, just don't walk away. He stood there, the weight of it all pressing against his ribs, but somewhere underneath the fear was something else, hope, steady and unexpected. I won't walk away, he said, but I need time. Vanessa nodded. Time I can give. She reached for his hand again, and this time he didn't pull away. 3 days passed before Quinn stepped through the front doors of the old building again. Vanessa had given him the keys without conditions. No pressure, no deadlines, just trust. But Quinn didn't know what to do with that kind of faith, not when he'd spent years shouldering everything on his own. Still, something about the smell of fresh paint and the echo of his footsteps across the wide floor made him feel like maybe, just maybe, this place could hold more than ideas. He ran a hand along the edge of a window frame, the sunlight spilling in warm and bright. Wyatt was at Lily's again, building a Lego tower taller than the coffee table, and Quinn had promised he'd be back before lunch. He turned at the sound of heels clicking softly behind him. I hoped I'd find you here, Vanessa said, her voice careful but not hesitant. I figured I should see what I'd be getting into, Quinn said, not turning away from the window just yet. It's a lot of space. That's the point, she said, stepping beside him. Room for people to grow, he glanced at her. You really believe it's that simple? No, she said, her eyes steady, but I believe it's worth trying. They stood in silence for a few breaths before she added, I'm meeting with a contractor this afternoon. If you're interested, I'd like you to be there. I haven't said yes. I know, this isn't about trapping you into anything, she said, But if you want to understand what this could be, you should see what it takes. Quinn leaned back against the window frame, arms crossed. You always this patient with people, she smiled faintly. No, but you're not people, you're you. He didn't say anything for a long moment, then nodded once. All right. I'll come. Later, as they walked the perimeter with the contractor, a wiry man with a clipboard and a voice full of measurements, Quinn asked questions. Not the kind meant to impress, but the kind that showed he was already thinking beyond the blueprints. He pointed out where a coat rack might go for kids coming in from the rain. He asked about floor durability, storage access, and whether the windows were tempered for safety. Vanessa watched him, arms folded, saying little. Not because she didn't have input, but because she was listening. Watching him come alive in a space he didn't yet know he needed. After the contractor left, Quinn lingered near the front steps, hands shoved in his jacket pockets. I've been looking for work every day, he said. Resumes, walk-ins, follow-ups, nothing sticks. And now here's this everything I didn't ask for, dropped in my lap. Vanessa stood beside him. It's not dropped in your lap, you've earned every piece of this. I'm just holding the door open. I'm not used to doors being open, he admitted. Most of them slam shut before I get there. She didn't reach for his hand this time. Instead, she looked out at the street, the cars passing, the city moving around them. Then maybe it's time you stopped knocking and started walking through. He turned to her. What if I mess it up? Then we fix it, she said. Together. That word together sat heavy in his chest, not like a weight, but like a promise he hadn't dared hope for. That evening, he picked up Wyatt early. The boy ran into his arms, his face flushed from playing. I built a rocket ship, Wyatt announced proudly. But it crashed. It's okay, though. I'm rebuilding it. Quinn ruffled his hair. Good. Sometimes the best things start out broken. He didn't say anything else, not about the building or Vanessa or the way something had shifted in him that afternoon. But when they got home, he pulled out a pen and wrote a list. Not of pros and cons, but of ideas. What a space like that could become. What he'd teach, who he'd help, how it might feel to build something that lasted. The next morning he called Vanessa. Is the offer still open? He asked, voice low. Always, she said. I want in. But I need to do it my way, of course. And I don't want to be the face of a charity project. You won't be, he hesitated. I need to work. I need to show Wyatt what it means to build something from the ground up. Even if that means saying no to handouts. There are no handouts here, Quinn, she said. Only investment. I'm investing in you. He was quiet for a long time. Then I guess it's time to build something. By the end of the week, they were sitting in the building's dusty backroom, going over blueprints and community outreach notes. Quinn was focused, scribbling in the margins while Vanessa pulled up lists of local vendors on her tablet. She looked up suddenly. You've barely asked me anything about my world, Quinn glanced at her. Maybe I'm just not ready to know all of it. Or maybe you're afraid it'll change how you see me. He considered that. I think I'm afraid it'll change how I see myself. She reached into her bag and pulled out something small, a photo. It was of her, younger, hair shorter, standing with two boys in school uniforms. One of them was laughing, the other looking off camera. That was my brother. He died when we were 16. Car crash. After that, everything changed. My father buried himself in business. I buried myself in control. Quinn looked at the photo, then at her. You think building this center gives you control? No, she said. I think it gives me peace. And maybe a chance to do something that actually matters. He nodded once, then leaned back in the chair, stretching his arms. You're not what I expected, she smiled. Neither are you. As the sun dipped below the windows, casting long shadows across the floor, Quinn looked around at the space again. It still echoed when they spoke, still smelled faintly of primer and dust. But now it felt like something was beginning. And for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of beginning again. Quinn adjusted the collar of his shirt in the reflection of the glass door, his palms damp despite the cool spring air. The building looked different now, new signage, fresh paint, and a row of potted plants outside the entrance that Vanessa had insisted on placing herself. The community center's grand opening had drawn a crowd. Local families, news reporters, and small business owners filled the space. their voices echoing through the main hall as children darted between legs with wide eyes and sticky fingers from the snack table. Inside, Wyatt was already settled at the craft station, his hands covered in glue and glitter, chatting animatedly with two kids from the neighborhood. Quinn spotted Lily nearby, keeping a watchful eye on the chaos with a paper cup of punch in hand. Vanessa stood by the front desk, wearing a pale blue blouse and a look he hadn't seen on her before, a kind of quiet pride that made her seem taller. She was speaking with the city councilwoman, gesturing toward the reading room they'd converted from an old storage area, but her eyes met Quinn's as he stepped in, and everything else dropped away. She walked to him slowly, weaving through the crowd with purpose. "You made it," she said, her voice low enough to cut through the noise without needing volume. "I said I would," Quinn replied. "Besides, Wyatt said he wouldn't forgive me if I missed the free cupcakes." Vanessa laughed, her gaze softening. "He already asked if he could run the summer robotics program." Quinn tilted his head. "He doesn't even know what robotics is. He said that didn't matter because you'd help him figure it out." That hit him harder than he expected. He looked around at what they'd built, what she'd made possible, and what he'd poured himself into once he let himself believe he could. It wasn't just a building anymore. It was a place where people came to begin again. "He's not wrong," Quinn said. "I'd figure it out for him." Vanessa reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. "I was going to wait until after the speeches, but I don't want this to be part of a performance." Quinn opened the lid slowly. Inside was a metal key, engraved, polished, heavy, not a front door key. It was brass, with his name etched into one side and the word director on the other. "I had it made 2 weeks ago," she said. "I wanted to make it official. This place doesn't run without you." Quinn stared at it. "I don't need a title." "I know," she said gently. "But I think you're finally ready to accept what you've earned." He closed the box, sliding it into his jacket pocket. "Thanks for not giving up on me." Vanessa looked up at him. "Thanks for giving me a reason not to." The speeches began an hour later. Quinn stood off to the side, arms crossed as Vanessa took the podium. Her words were confident but not rehearsed. She spoke about opportunity, about rebuilding, about the power of showing up for people who don't always expect it. She didn't mention her last name. She didn't talk about money. She talked about hope. After the applause faded, she stepped down and crossed the room to him again. "There's one more thing," she said, "but it's not for the press." Quinn raised an eyebrow. "Should I be nervous?" "Probably," she said. "Come with me." They stepped out the back exit into the alley behind the building. The sun was setting low, painting the sky in streaks of coral and rose. A sleek black SUV idled by the curb, the same one she'd arrived in the first day they met. "I want to show you something," Vanessa said. He followed her into the car, and they drove 10 minutes through the city until they reached a quiet cul-de-sac lined with townhomes under blooming cherry trees. She stopped in front of one with a wide porch, a small swing hanging from the side beam, and a "for sale" sign leaning against the mailbox. Quinn frowned. "You buying another building?" "No," she said. "I already bought it." He turned sharply. "Vanessa, for you," she interrupted. "And Wyatt. You've done everything to make your life work inside 4 walls that barely held together. I'm not asking you to be grateful. I'm asking you to let yourself live somewhere that reflects the kind of man you've become." "I can't accept." "You're not accepting a gift," she said. "You're accepting a life, one with space for Wyatt to grow, one where you don't have to count coins to buy groceries, one where I get to love you without you thinking it's charity." He stared at the porch light, already glowing softly in the twilight. "You love me." Vanessa's voice was steady. "I didn't say it before because I knew it would scare you off, and maybe it still will. But yes, Quinn, I love you. I love how you fight for your son. I love how you never ask for anything but give everything. And I love how you look at me like I'm just a woman, not a headline." He stepped out of the car slowly, his steps dragging until he reached the porch. He ran a hand along the railing, then turned back to her. "I don't know how to live in a world where people just do things like this for me." "Then we'll learn together," she said. He walked back down the steps and stopped in front of her. "I don't have a ring, I don't have a plan, but I know this. I don't want to keep building anything if you're not part of it." Vanessa blinked. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying I want to marry you," he said. "Not tomorrow, not next week, but when we're ready, On our terms, not because you saved me, not because I owe you, because I love you, and I trust you. And I want Wyatt to see what it looks like when two people choose each other. She didn't speak. She just stepped forward and kissed him, slow and deep, her hands gripping the front of his jacket like she never wanted to let go. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "Then let's build that life." Starting now. That night, they returned to the center, where the celebration still buzzed with music and laughter. Wyatt spotted them and ran into Quinn's arms, his glitter-covered hands leaving marks on his shirt. Vanessa crouched beside him and held out a small cupcake with a single candle. "It's not your birthday," she said, "but it's the beginning of something." Quinn lit the candle and Wyatt squeezed his eyes shut to make a wish. When he blew it out, the room filled with cheers. And just like that, Quinn knew this wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning of everything real. Vanessa stood barefoot on the back deck, the early morning sun stretching long golden beams across the freshly cut grass. The townhome was quiet, save for the occasional creak of floorboards inside as Wyatt shuffled around, undoubtedly looking for his missing sneaker again. She could hear the faint hum of the dishwasher from the kitchen and the distant bark of a neighbor's dog, but all of it fell away when Quinn stepped outside, 2 mugs in hand. He passed one to her without a word and leaned against the railing, the steam curling between them like a secret. "What time is the meeting with the after-school program director?" she asked, watching a bluebird hop along the fence. 11, Quinn said. "She's bringing a proposal for a mentorship track, high school kids paired with elementary students." Wyatt already volunteered to teach them how to build a cardboard vending machine. Vanessa smiled. "He's going to be the youngest entrepreneur in the zip code." Quinn took a long sip of his coffee before setting the mug down. He turned toward her, eyes calm but focused. "I was thinking about the ceremony." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "You mean the one we haven't planned yet?" "Exactly. I don't want anything big, no gala, no press, no speeches, just us, Wyatt. A few people who have seen us through. I already told my father we're not doing the vineyard. He offered the vineyard." Quinn laughed under his breath. "Of course he did. I think he still believes this is a phase. That I'll wake up one day and remember I'm supposed to marry some hedge fund guy with a chin sharper than his ethics." Quinn tilted his head. "Tempting." Vanessa nudged him with her shoulder. "You're braver than all of them. You built a life from nothing and still had enough left to give someone hope. You don't need a vineyard to prove anything." He reached for her hand, fingers lacing easily. "I just want it to feel like us, something real." "It already does," she said. "But if you're serious, I have an idea." Quinn raised an eyebrow. "There's a garden behind the center," she said. "It's got wildflowers growing in the cracks of the pavement. We've been talking about cleaning it up anyway. What if we made that our place?" He nodded slowly. "We plant it together. Build it up, then get married there." "Exactly. And Wyatt can be the officiant, or at least the ring bearer. He gets suspicious if he's not the center of attention." They both laughed, the kind that comes easy when the hard parts have already been faced. Later that day, they stood behind the community center, ankle-deep in weeds and half-buried bricks, sleeves rolled up, shoulders sun-kissed and dusted with soil. Wyatt had declared himself project manager and was currently wielding a clipboard he found in the Lost and Found, shouting instructions at 2 volunteers. Quinn knelt beside Vanessa, gently planting a row of lavender. "You know," he said, "I used to think love was something that happened to other people, the kind of people who didn't have to fight for groceries or patch leaking ceilings in the middle of the night." Vanessa pressed her hands into the dirt. "And now I think maybe love was just waiting for me to stop surviving long enough to see it." She looked at him then, eyes wide, unguarded. "I loved you before you believed any of this could be yours." "I know," he said, brushing a smudge of soil from her cheek. "And that's why I'll never stop loving you back." They kissed there in the middle of the garden, surrounded by chaos and laughter and overturned flower pots. It wasn't polished or perfect, but it was theirs. 2 weeks later, on a warm Saturday afternoon, the garden bloomed. The wildflowers had been cleared, replanted, and arranged around a small stone path. Hand-painted signs marked each section: friendship, growth, new beginnings. Strings of lights crisscrossed above, glowing softly as dusk settled. Vanessa wore a simple white dress with lace along the sleeves. Her hair was down, curled loosely around her shoulders. Wyatt stood between them, holding a script with bent corners and a grin far too wide for someone pretending to be serious. "Do you, Quinn Hartley, promise to love Vanessa even when she talks through movies and reorganizes your toolbox alphabetically?" "I do," Quinn said, his voice thick. "And I promise to love her even when she refuses to admit she snores." Gasps and chuckles rippled through the 30 or so people gathered beneath the lights. "And do you, Vanessa Ford, promise to love Quinn even when he forgets to fold laundry and insists on fixing things you already paid someone else to fix?" "I do," Vanessa said, trying not to laugh. "And I promise to love him even when he burns toast and pretends it's intentional." Wyatt cleared his throat dramatically. "Then by the power vested in me by the internet and Miss Lily's printer, I now pronounce you husband and wife." They kissed beneath the lights, surrounded by the people who mattered. No headlines, no cameras, just love blooming where it was least expected. Later that night, after the last guest had gone and Wyatt was asleep on the couch with a frosting-smeared cheek and a ribbon in his hair, Vanessa and Quinn sat on the garden bench in silence. "I never imagined this," he said. "I did," she replied. "But it's even better than I pictured. You think we'll make it? We're already making it," she said. "One step, one seed, one late-night glue project at a time," Quinn rested his head against hers. "Then let's keep going," and they did. In the months that followed, the community center blossomed. New programs launched. Local teens led workshops. The mentorship track became a model for other districts. Quinn's name appeared more and more on local boards, but he always walked home at 6, Wyatt's hand in his, the smell of dinner wafting from the kitchen window. Vanessa balanced work with intention, carving time for garden walks, Sunday pancakes, and dance nights in the living room with the lights off and the music too loud. They weren't trying to impress anyone. They were just living together fully forever.